$300,000 watches, $500,000 supercars, and luxury mansions that could set you back $1 million. Everyone thinks their life would be a whole lot better if they could afford the finer things in life, but they always forget that wealth comes with a dark side. This is the dark side of owning expensive things. You've probably dreamt about having all the money in the world. Waking up every day knowing you can afford everything you've ever wanted is everyone's dream. It's why guys like Elon Musk could buy this $1 million car from a James Bond film, which could turn into a submarine. Or why Bill Gates didn't even bat an eye when he was told that the 500-year-old scrapbook he needed for his library would cost him $30 million. Billionaires like Bill Gates and Elon Musk might drive fancy cars and live in crazy mansions, but what they don't show you is how intense you have to be to get to that level. Imagine waking up every day at the crack of dawn to go to a hard-ass job where one mistake is all it takes to ruin it all. If you think that sounds intense, wait till you hear about the back-breaking work they had to put in during their early days. You'd think working a 9-to-5 was bad, but it's nothing compared to what most self-made billionaires had to endure to get to that state. At this point, being filthy rich doesn't sound as much fun if you have to suffer that much to get it. But the last thing most people don't consider is how evil you have to be to get that rich. Sure, they don't commit crimes with dangerous weapons, but they rip off people to the point where it sounds insane to think about. Anytime a billionaire like Elon flexes a new house on Mars or a fancy mansion, you know it was all possible because they took home a lot more earnings than the workers who do as much work. While they smile to the bank with millions each year, their workers get paid pennies on the dollar and still get none of the credit for their hard work.
Are you sincerely trying to save the world?
Well, I'm trying to do good things, yeah. I mean, saving the world is not I mean...
But you're trying to do good things and you're a billionaire. I mean...
Yeah.
That seems a little bit like either superhero or supervillain. You have to choose one.
Everything doesn't have to be about exploiting others for your benefit. That's why you should subscribe to the channel. It's free and you don't need to think of ripping off anyone. If you're the type that won't lose any sleep at night from being evil, you might want to have a rethink about owning that sick Ferrari. What if I told you that one of the worst things about owning expensive things is how dangerous everything becomes? Once the zeros in your bank account pass a certain point, things like going for a grocery run or a quick trip to the park are out of the question. Once you start racking up expensive things like cars, jewelry, and homes, going for a simple grocery run sounds as dangerous as going to war. That might be an exaggeration, but the people who complain about break-ins the most are the rich guys with a lot of expensive stuff. If you're the type to flex around a lot, you're going to need to invest in security because people who aren't as rich as you might want to take a look at your wallet. That's why you don't really see guys like Jeff Bezos in his $300,000 Mercedes going for a quick trip to the store, even though he owns one of the biggest retail chains in the world. Bezos and guys like him employ an army of nobodies who get to go do everyday things around the home and at work, just because it's too dangerous for them to do it themselves. I don't see the use of having crazy expensive things if I can't do something stupid every once in a while. By now, you might be saying giving up trips to your local Walmart is a fair price to pay to own some of the most expensive things in the world, but that's because you haven't really thought it through. Not being able to get things at the grocery store is the least of your worries because you literally can't go anywhere without attracting a lot of attention. Once you realize that you can only visit a few spots without getting harassed, it begins to feel like you're living in a cage. And don't get us started on hiring security to tag along on all your trips, because there is nothing worse than having a babysitter looking over your shoulder every time. You'd think this wouldn't be a problem if you could take care of yourself, but you'd be so wrong. Think of Floyd Mayweather with his years of knocking out guys in the ring. If someone as tough as Floyd still needs a few bodyguards anytime he wants to step out of his home, what makes you think you'd survive with your Versace shoes? It sounds wrong to say owning a lot of expensive things leads to paying a lot of bills, but there's a reason super rich guys love to hide their money in offshore accounts, and it's not because it's fun. One of the benefits of having a boat ton of money is not having to panic anytime you have to pay your bills. But when you own a lot of expensive things, those bills start to pile up fast. Looking at a $500,000 Rolls-Royce Phantom, most people only think about the cost it takes to get the car from the dealer down to your garage. But owning a supercar is a lot more complex than that. Once that sweet ride gets into your home, you have to start thinking about things like routine maintenance and storage. If you thought paying a few bucks a year to keep a Chevy in top condition is bad, wait till you see how much it costs to keep a Rolls-Royce in top shape. And it's not just the Rolls-Royce. The Ferraris, the Lamborghinis, and any other supercar you could think of is a glorified money burner. By the time you're done adding up the fees you end up paying for things like owning a private jet or a fancy mansion in LA, you realize that it takes a lot more money to keep your expensive pleasures. That's one of the reasons why there's a supercar dump site in Dubai with an insane number of luxury cars.
Perfect condition. There's like nothing wrong with this one. This one is here probably because someone couldn't pay a debt. Maybe it was seized by the bank. There are other cars over the years that have literally just been abandoned by owners on the side of the road because they couldn't pay their debts and they had to leave the country straight away. So you've got cars like this here, and then you've got cars like this. Rolls-Royce Wraith.
While you're trying to figure your way around these hidden bills that come with owning expensive things, you realize that things get a lot worse. Having fancy cars and clothes will open a lot of doors, but you're never going to be able to shake off the idea that people are only being nice to you because of what you have. When you didn't have much, meeting people and making friends was all about connecting with people who were as crazy as you. But once you're rolling in a $250,000 Ferrari, you can kiss real connections goodbye. After all, who wouldn't want to be friends with the guy who owns a massive California mansion or drives the flashiest cars? It's a problem most people will never even have to bother about. But once you cross that line into millionaire status, you really have to consider if your friends are really your friends. I don't know about you, but not being able to trust my friends sounds like hell. And I'm not sure owning several $100,000 watches is worth that. If you can't even trust your friends and family, what's the point of even getting all the shiny things? When you look at millionaires, they often look like they are having the time of their lives with everything they could ever want served on a platter. But it's all about pretending for the camera. It might sound insane at first, but even with all the designer clothes, some people can't shake the thought of being alone. A lot of people who look like they have it all often wish they could give it away if it meant they could have genuine connections. It might not make sense to you because all you see is the glamour that comes with owning expensive stuff, but it's really bad. It's why Bill Gates plans to give away most of his wealth in a couple of decades. And Bill Gates isn't the only one giving away his wealth. Other rich people like Warren Buffett and Mark Zuckerberg also vowed to give away most of their wealth. You might not be able to imagine throwing it all away once you get there, but if someone like Gates is willing to donate a massive chunk of his wealth, you have to admit that there's something there. And if you're not convinced with everything we've said so far, then the most devastating reason why you might not want to own expensive things should do the trick. Most people work so hard to get the expensive things they own, and once they amass quite a haul, they can't imagine their life without it. Once you've gone a few years drinking the best champagne and staying in the best homes, going back to where you started sounds like being sent on exile. Logan Paul and his brother Jake might fly around the world in private jets and own million-dollar businesses, but they didn't start out like that. Now that they are used to the good life, getting them to go back to the days when they shared bunk beds sounds like a death sentence. This is why most rich people with the most expensive gear have a fear of losing it all. And it gets worse the more you have. Guys like Bill Gates and Zuckerberg might not want to hang on to all that wealth, But for the rest of the billion-dollar gang, it's not so simple. Most of them can't imagine life without their expensive items, and it has led them to do the most despicable things you could ever imagine to keep the penny rolling in. You don't ever want to get to that stage, because once you cross that line, there is no going back.